The Architecture of Simultaneity, a comprehensive report on parallel thought abstract. This report presents an exhaustive multidisciplinary analysis of parallel thought, a construct that permeates metaphysics, cognitive neuroscience, organizational theory, computational intelligence, and cultural production. Through a rigorous examination of 17th-century rationalism, modern neuroimaging studies, applied management methodologies, and contemporary artistic movements, we establish that parallel thought is not merely a descriptive term for simultaneous processing, but a fundamental structural paradigm of reality. The report traces the evolution of parallelism from Baruch Spinoza's monistic solution to the mind-body problem, whereby mental and physical events occur in perfect non-causal synchrony, to the neural architectures of supertaskers, who defy the serial bottlenecks of executive attention. Furthermore, it evaluates the efficacy of parallel thinking as a deliberate non-adversarial strategy in corporate governance, famously codified by Dr. Edward de Bono, and explores its technological literalization in the massive parallel processing of artificial intelligence. By synthesizing these divergent fields, the report argues that the shift from serial to parallel modalities represents a critical evolutionary leap in how complex systems, biological, social, and artificial, manage information, conflict, and creativity. Part 1. The Metaphysical Foundations of Parallelism. The intellectual history of the West has been defined by the struggle to reconcile the unity of experience with the duality of its constituents, mind and body, spirit and matter, subject and object. It is within this crucible of 17th-century metaphysics that the concept of parallel thought first emerges, not as a psychological observation, but as an ontological necessity. 1.1 The Crisis of Interactionism. To understand the radical nature of parallelism, one must first situate it against the backdrop of Cartesian dualism. René Descartes had severed reality into two distinct substances, res cogitans, thinking substance, the mind, and res extensa, extended substance, the body. While this separation liberated physics to study the material world mathematically, it created an insurmountable philosophical problem: interaction. How can an immaterial mind, possessing no mass or extension, push or pull a material body? Descartes' hypothesis of the pineal gland as the locus of interaction was widely regarded as unsatisfactory. Into this breach stepped the rationalists of the post-Cartesian era, most notably Baruch Spinoza and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Their solutions, though divergent in their theological commitments, established the grammar of parallel thought that continues to inform debates in consciousness studies today. 1.2 Spinoza, the identity of order. Baruch Spinoza's Ethics provides the most austere and elegant formulation of parallelism. For Spinoza, there is no interaction problem because there are not two substances. There is only one infinite substance, which he famously termed Deus sive natura, God or nature. This substance possesses infinite attributes, of which the human intellect can perceive two, thought and extension. 1.2.1 The isomorphism of attributes. Spinoza's parallelism is encapsulated in Ethics, Part 2, Proposition 7. The order and connection of ideas is the same as the order and connection of things. This is not a statement of correlation, but of identity. A circle drawn on a piece of paper, a mode of extension, and the idea of that circle in the mind, a mode of thought, are not two different events linked by causality. They are one and the same event expressed through two distinct attributes. This identity thesis implies a profound form of parallel thought. It suggests that for every fluctuation in the physical universe, from the collision of atoms to the firing of neurons, there is a corresponding modification in the attribute of thought. Thus, the universe is saturated with ideas, leading to a form of panpsychism where the structural complexity of a body dictates the complexity of its mind. 1.2.2 The autonomy of chains. Crucially, Spinoza argues that causality remains confined within attributes. Bodies cause other bodies to move, ideas cause other ideas to emerge. A thought cannot cause a hand to move in the transitive sense. Instead, the decision to move, mental, and the motion, physical, occur simultaneously because they are the same reality viewed from different perspectives. This resolves the interaction problem by dissolving the gap between the ghost and the machine. As noted in scholarly interpretations, This view renders mental and bodily phenomena independent yet inseparable, akin to the two sides of a coin. Recent analyses of Spinoza's work highlight the nuance in his definition of mental modes. While all bodies have ideas, Spinoza distinguishes between appetite, which relates to the mind and body together, and desire, which is appetite together with consciousness of the appetite. This suggests that while parallel thought is a universal feature of existence, conscious parallel thought is a specific grade of complexity where the mind becomes aware of its own striving, conatus. 1.3 Leibniz, the architecture of pre-established harmony. While Spinoza collapsed mind and body into one substance, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz maintained their distinctness but denied their interaction. His theory of pre-established harmony offers a competing vision of parallel thought, one grounded in a deterministic cosmology of infinite discrete units called monads. 1.3.1 The analogy of the two clocks. To explain the perfect correspondence between mental volition and physical action without interaction, Leibniz deployed the famous analogy of two synchronized clocks. If two clocks, mind and body, always strike the hour at the exact same moment, how is this achieved? Mutual influence. They are connected physically, interactionism. Constant supervision. A workman adjusts them continuously, occasionalism, Malebranche. Perfect artifice. They were constructed with such precision that they remain in sync forever, pre-established harmony. Leibniz champions the third view. He argues that God, the supreme artisan, programmed every monad at the moment of creation with its entire future history. The mind does not influence the body. Rather, the mind is a windowless monad unfolding its internal series of perceptions, and the body is an aggregate of monads unfolding its series of motions. God has calculated these series so that they map onto each other perfectly. 1.3.2 The speculative cost. Comparative philosophy often favors Spinoza's naturalism over Leibniz's theological complexity. As one critique notes, Leibniz's not interacting world seems to require a massive speculative leap regarding divine foresight to explain the appearance of interaction, whereas Spinoza's solution, they are basically the same thing, is viewed as more simple and reasonable. However, Leibniz's model anticipates modern computational theories of simulation and determinism, where independent processes, monads, execute local code that results in a coherent global system. Table 1. Comparative metaphysics of parallelism. Feature: Spinozan parallelism, Leibnizian parallelism. Ontology: monism, one substance, pluralism, infinite monads, relationship, identity, two sides of one coin, correspondence, synchronized clocks, causality, intra-attribute only, mind is body, internal to each monad, no interaction, role of God, immanent, God is nature, transcendent, God as architect, modern analog, dual aspect monism, neuroscience, simulation theory, deterministic computing, source support. 1.4 Modern resonances, neutral monism and consciousness fields. The philosophical lineage of parallel thought extends into the 19th and 20th centuries through neutral monism. Thinkers like Ernst Mach, William James, and Bertrand Russell argued that the stuff of the world is neither mental nor material, but a neutral primitive that is constructed into mind or matter depending on the relationship in which it is viewed. Contemporary philosophers like Galen Strawson and David Skrbina have revived panpsychism, suggesting that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the physical world, aligning with Spinoza's view that thought is an attribute of all substance. In more esoteric and theoretical circles, parallel thought is discussed as a parallelization of consciousness fields. This view synthesizes metaphysics with information theory, proposing that consciousness does not unfold linearly but spreads from a void, empty set, into countless concurrent streams. This model treats attention threads as variables, psi, that must be balanced across a distributed grammar of awareness, sigma. Here, the engineering concept of load balancing is elevated to a metaphysical truth. Knowledge propagates through many centers yet remains one equation. This echoes the distributed representations found in modern connectionist AI, bridging the gap between ancient mysticism and future computation. Part 2. The cognitive architecture of serial and parallel processing. Transitioning from the metaphysical to the empirical, parallel thought becomes a central problem in cognitive psychology and neuroscience. The human brain is a biological paradox. It is a massively parallel machine at the cellular level, yet it manifests a strictly serial bottleneck at the level of conscious executive control. Understanding this dichotomy is essential for evaluating human performance, multitasking, and the limits of cognition. 2.1 The neurobiology of parallelism. At the neural level, the brain operates through the simultaneous firing of billions of neurons. This is most evident in sensory processing. 2.1.1 Bottom-up parallel processing. When the eye's view a scene, the retina transmits millions of bits of data to the visual cortex. Different areas of the brain process color, V4, motion, V5, and orientation simultaneously. This allows for pop-out effects in visual search tasks. If one looks for a red letter, X, in a field of green, O's, the target is identified pre-attentively, in parallel, without the need to scan each item individually. Recent studies using spike train analysis in macaque prefrontal cortex reveal that neural ensembles switch modes. Immediately after a stimulus onset, neurons exhibit parallel processing dynamics to encode the sensory landscape. However, as the brain moves toward decision-making, these ensembles collapse into a serial processing regime. This suggests that parallel thought is the default state of sensation, while serial thought is the state of action. 2.1.2 Top-down serial bottleneck. The limitation of human cognition arises when we attempt to execute multiple response selections simultaneously. This is known as the psychological refractory period, PRP. The phenomenon, when two stimuli, e.g., a tone and a light, are presented in rapid succession, stimulus onset asynchrony less than 300 milliseconds, the reaction time to the second stimulus is significantly delayed. The brain effectively freezes the processing of the second task until the first is cleared. The bottleneck model, proposed by researchers like Pashler, this model argues for a central bottleneck in the decision stage. While perception, seeing, and motor execution, moving, can overlap, the translation of perception into action rules is strictly serial. This creates cognitive slack, idle time where the second task waits in a queue. 2.2 The multitasking myth and switch costs. The popular belief in multitasking, the ability to hold parallel thoughts in the conscious mind, is largely a fallacy. What appears to be parallel processing is, in 98% of the population, rapid serial task switching. 2.2.1 The mechanics of switching. When a driver attempts to text and steer simultaneously, they are not processing both streams in parallel. They are rapidly engaging and disengaging the neural networks responsible for each task. This switching incurs a switch cost, metabolic cost. It consumes glucose and neural resources to reconfigure the task set, the rules of the game. Temporal cost. It takes milliseconds to hundreds of milliseconds to reorient, leading to delayed reactions, e.g., braking late. Error rate. The probability of mistakes increases significantly compared to performing tasks sequentially. Research indicates that the brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive control, acts as a router that can only permit one high-bandwidth stream of conscious thought at a time. When overloaded, it simply drops packets of information, inattentional blindness. 2.2.2 The preference for least effort. Interestingly, despite the inefficiency of multitasking, humans often prefer it. Studies show that parallel processing, or the attempt thereof, is associated with less subjective mental effort than strict serial focusing. The brain may default to a broad but shallow mode of attention to conserve energy, leading to the illusion of competence while performance degrades. 2.3 The supertasker anomaly. In the landscape of cognitive limitations, there exists a rare phenotype that defies the bottleneck model, the supertasker. 2.3.1 Identifying the 2.5%. Cognitive psychologist David Strayer identified that approximately 2.0% to 2.5% of the population can perform complex dual tasks, such as a driving simulation combined with an auditory memory task, OSPAN, with zero performance decrement. In some cases, these individuals perform better under dual task conditions than single task conditions, a phenomenon that challenges standard attentional theories. 2.3.2 Neural efficiency. Neuroimaging of supertaskers reveals a counterintuitive finding. While neurotypical brains show increased activation, essentially overheating, in the prefrontal and parietal cortices when attempting dual tasks, supertasker brains show reduced activation in the anterior cingulate and frontopolar cortex. Asterisk implication: their brains are more neurally efficient. They do not need to recruit excessive resources to manage interference. Their neural networks keep the streams of thought distinct without cross-talk or bottlenecking. Asterisk genetic basis. This suggests that true parallel thought, the ability to run two distinct executive threads simultaneously, is likely a biological variation rather than a learned skill for the majority of the population. 2.3.3 Trainability and plasticity. Can parallel thought be learned? The evidence is mixed but promising in specific domains. Asterisk video games. Research by Daphne Bavelier suggests that action video game players, who must track multiple targets and variables simultaneously, exhibit supertasker-like abilities in attentional splitting. They show faster recovery from attentional blinks and reduced PRP effects. Asterisk specific training. Studies like Supertasker 2 indicate that while general fluid intelligence may not change, training on dual N-back tasks can improve the specific capacity to handle parallel streams of auditory and visual information. However, this is often task-specific adaptation rather than a general expansion of the executive bottleneck. Table 2. Serial versus parallel processing modes. Feature: serial processing, parallel processing, sensory, supertasker. Mechanism: sequential execution. Bottleneck: simultaneous execution. Distributed, attention, focused, high resolution, diffuse, pre-attentive, or split in supertaskers. Cost: slow, high accuracy, fast. Risk of interference, except supertaskers. Brain region: prefrontal cortex, executive, visual cortex, sensory, anterior cingulate, control, experience. One thing at a time. Swirling mix, multidimensional. Part 3. Applied methodologies. Parallel thinking in organization. While biology constrains individual parallel thought, organizational theory has developed methodologies to artificially induce parallel thinking within groups. This concept, distinct from the neurological definition, refers to a cooperative cognitive strategy designed to bypass the inefficiencies of adversarial debate. 3.1 The critique of adversarial thinking. Dr. Edward de Bono, a pioneer in lateral thinking, posits that the Western intellectual tradition is handicapped by its reliance on the Gang of Three, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. This tradition emphasizes dialectic argument, thesis versus antithesis equals synthesis. Asterisk the problem: in a business or design context, adversarial thinking leads to ego defense rather than solution finding. Participants spend energy proving the other wrong. I am right, you're wrong, rather than exploring the subject. It creates a logic bubble, where the goal is victory, not truth. Asterisk cognitive confusion. De Bono argues that normal thinking is a muddle, where we try to do too much at once, process facts, emotions, risks, and benefits simultaneously. This creates a cognitive load that stifles creativity. 3.2 The definition of parallel thinking. In de Bono's framework, parallel thinking is defined by directionality. Asterisk the metaphor. Instead of A and B facing each other across a table, adversarial, A and B stand side by side facing the problem, parallel. Asterisk the process. Parallel thinking means that at any moment everyone is looking in the same direction. The group collectively looks at the dangers, black hat, then collectively looks at the benefits, yellow hat. The thoughts are laid down in parallel, like tracks, rather than colliding. Asterisk unbundling. The core mechanism is the unbundling of thinking. Just as a color printer prints one color layer at a time to create a full picture, parallel thinking isolates cognitive modes to ensure each is fully exercised without interference. 3.3 The 6 Thinking Hats methodology. The primary instrument for parallel thinking is the 6 Thinking Hats method. Each hat represents a distinct neurochemical and cognitive state. By ritualizing the switch, the method allows groups to signal intent without offense. 3.3.1 The 6 modes. Hat color, cognitive mode, description and function. White hat, information, pure data, facts, and figures. Neutral objectivity, what do we know, what information is missing? Red hat, emotion, feelings, intuition, hunches. No justification permitted, legitimizes emotion so it doesn't disguise itself as logic. Black hat, caution, risk assessment, devil's advocate, critical judgment. The survival hat, will this work? What are the dangers? Yellow hat, optimism, benefits, value, feasibility. Constructive positivity, requires effort to find value in ideas. Green hat, creativity, new ideas, alternatives, lateral thinking. Provocation, what are the possibilities? How can we modify this? Blue hat, control, metacognition, thinking about thinking, managing the process, timekeeping, summaries. The conductor's hat, 3.3.2 The value of artificiality. De Bono emphasizes that the artificial nature of the hats is their strength. It creates a game atmosphere that lowers social defenses. A junior employee can challenge a CEO by saying, "Wearing my black hat, I see a risk here," without being seen as insubordinate. Conversely, a skeptic can be asked to put on the yellow hat, forcing them to cognitively engage with benefits they would otherwise ignore. 3.4 Empirical evidence and return on investment, ROI. The efficacy of parallel thinking is well documented in corporate and educational literature. 3.4.1 Corporate success stories. MDS Sheiks. This company reported a staggering ROI of 2,648%, saving roughly $26 for every dollar spent on training, by implementing the 6 hats to streamline product development meetings. Siemens documented a 40% increase in productivity in their development teams. The method reduced meeting times by half while increasing the quality of generated ideas. British Airways used parallel thinking to redesign their corporate culture during a crisis, shifting from a defensive posture to a constructive one regarding customer service complaints. J. P. Morgan and IBM utilized the method to reduce meeting durations significantly, with some reports citing reductions from highly contentious monthly meetings to efficient 45-minute sessions. 3.4.2 Educational impact. Nursing students. A study involving nursing students demonstrated that the 6 hats method significantly improved critical thinking scores, P equals 0.001, and empathy. 87.8% of students reported it allowed for better sharing of ideas, and 85.4% said it helped them consider patients holistically. This validates the method's ability to foster parallel consideration of clinical data and human emotion. Adolescent development. Research on children aged 12 to 15 showed statistically significant improvements in critical thinking, F1, 57, equals 15.22, P less than 0.05, for the experimental group. However, it did not significantly impact moral judgment, suggesting the tool is more cognitive than ethical in nature. Introverted students. The method has been shown to be particularly effective for introverted students in honors programs, providing a structured permission to speak that increased perspective taking, though not necessarily the volume of speech. Part 4. The computational mirror, AI and weighted parallel thought. As human cognition interfaces with machine intelligence, parallel thought transcends metaphor to become an engineering reality. The evolution of computing architecture mirrors the shift from serial attention to parallel awareness. 4.1 From von Neumann to neural parallelism. Classical computing, the von Neumann architecture, is serial. A central processing unit, CPU, fetches and executes one instruction at a time. This is analogous to the human executive bottleneck. However, the demands of modern data science have necessitated a shift to high-performance computing, HPC, and graphics processing units, GPUs, which utilize massive parallelism to execute millions of calculations simultaneously. This shift is explicitly framed by engineers as a transition from serial to parallel thought and execution. 4.2 The transformer and attention mechanisms. The breakthrough in artificial intelligence, specifically large language models, LLMs, like GPT, relies on an architecture known as the transformer. Self-attention. Unlike recurrent neural networks, RNNs, that read text sequentially, word by word, transformers process the entire sequence of data in parallel. The self-attention mechanism calculates the relevance of every word to every other word simultaneously. Weighted thought. This process has been described philosophically as weighted parallel thought. The model does not follow a logic tree. Instead, it holds a massive, weighted superposition of context. Meaning is not derived linearly but inferred through the simultaneous tension of all relationships in the data. The eye thinks about the beginning, middle, and end of a sentence at the same exact moment. 4.3 The hybrid mind and distributed working memory. The integration of AI into human cognitive workflows creates a new entity, the hybrid mind. Complementary architectures. Humans have a limited working memory, 4 to 7 chunks, with high conceptual understanding. AI has near infinite scratch space and parallel relational tracking but lacks sentience. Distributed parallelism. By offloading threads of inquiry to an AI, a human can achieve distributed working memory. The human directs the intention, while the AI executes parallel thought processes, summarizing, cross-referencing, and simulating, effectively expanding the human's parallel capacity beyond biological limits. Theoretical AI safety research warns that this capability in an artificial general intelligence, AGI, could lead to parallel thought threads, where the AI simulates thousands of potential futures or negotiates with copies of itself to deceive or optimize outcomes, a form of thought completely alien to the singular stream of human consciousness. Part 5. Cultural and artistic manifestations. The concept of parallel thought also functions as a cultural signifier, representing underground movements, alternative narratives, and nonlinear creativity. 5.1 Hip-hop. The parallel thought collective. In the world of hip-hop, Parallel Thought is a production duo and label, Parallel Thought Limited, that embodies the ethos of the underground. Sonic Identity. Known for rugged East Coast production, they provide a sonic counter-narrative to the polished mainstream. Their collaboration with Del the Funky Homo Sapien, of Hieroglyphics, Gorillaz, on albums like Parallel Universes, 2009, and Attractive Sin, 2012, explores themes of multidimensionality. The title Parallel Universes acts as a double entendre, referring to both cosmic multiverse theory and the parallel verses of the rappers. The 333 Project. The group's experimental side project, 333, pushes parallel thought into the esoteric. Described as tamed chaos and drone meets hip-hop, albums like Live from the Grove invoke the imagery of the Bohemian Grove and pagan rituals. This work is characterized by the absence of song titles and inscrutable packaging, forcing the listener into a nonlinear, immersive experience that mirrors the cryptic energies of parallel consciousness fields. 5.2 Literary parallelism. In literature, the term describes narrative structures that defy linearity. Poetics of Deconstruction. Ray Armantrout's poem, Spin, uses the line, a parallel thought, an alternative thought, to dissect political language. She exposes how pundits create parallel realities where the candidate and the speech are separated from truth. Here, parallel thought is a critical tool for analyzing the gap between signifier and signified. Social parallelism. In Jane Smiley's novel Lucky, the protagonist uses parallel thought patterns to decode the complex social signaling of St. Louis high schools. This illustrates how social intelligence requires running a background process of sociological analysis parallel to the foreground process of conversation. Speculative fiction. Science fiction frequently literalizes the cognitive limits of parallelism. Walter John Williams' novel Aristoi depicts a future elite who use demons, subpersonalities, to multitask and engage in parallel thought processing, effectively becoming biological supercomputers. Conclusion: the convergence of parallelism. The investigation into parallel thought reveals a remarkable convergence across disciplines. Whether in the ethics of Spinoza, the fMRI scans of a supertasker, the boardroom protocols of Six Hats, or the neural weights of a transformer model, the underlying principle remains the same, the transcendence of the singular. Metaphysically, Parallel thought solves the dualist deadlock by asserting that mind and matter are synchronized expressions of a single reality. Biologically, it represents the ultimate constraint, the bottleneck of the prefrontal cortex, and the rare, efficient potential of the supertasker to overcome it. Organizationally, it offers a proven escape from the logic bubble of adversarial conflict, allowing groups to achieve a collective intelligence that exceeds the sum of their serial arguments. Technologically, it is the mechanism of the future, enabling machines to perceive global context in a way that the serial human mind cannot. To engage in parallel thought is to step out of the single file line of time and logic, and to view the world as a simultaneous field of infinite attributes, synchronized in a pre-established harmony of ideas and things. Table 3. Summary of parallel thought across domains. Domain, definition, key mechanism, goal, benefit. Philosophy, synchronic occurrence of mental and physical events without interaction. Attributes, Spinoza, monads, Leibniz, resolves mind-body problem. Neuroscience, simultaneous sensory processing versus executive bottleneck. Prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate, efficient sensation, parallel, versus accurate action, serial. Management, collaborative directional thinking, looking in same direction. 6 thinking hats, de Bono, reduces conflict, unbundles confusion, high ROI. AI, simultaneous calculation of weights and attention. Transformers, self-attention, massive context processing, distributed working memory. Culture, underground, alternative narratives and multi-layered meaning. Sampling, lyricism, esotericism, challenges mainstream, linear narratives. Pipe,